Welcome to Coffee with a Flat Earther. There's a lot of animosity between ballers and flat earthers. I hope to reduce this by having friendly conversations. Today, I'm with Marilyn Spirit Level. How you doing, Marilyn?
I'm great. How are you, MC?
I'm great as well. I'm super. My college roommate I spoke to last week, and he always would say super, so I'm like, I gotta stick with that.
Yeah.
I like how he did that. So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Just not flat earth stuff, just anything you may or may not care to share about you?
Well, for 61 years, and I make no beans about any of these things. If you listen to any of my videos, you'll know that I'm very open about things. And for 61 years, and I tell this to people on the street, I was a globe believer just like the rest of you. But 2.5 years ago, and it was actually Easter of 17 when this all was revealed to me. And I say it that way because I don't think of myself as anything like special, like I'm smarter than you or anything like that. I always think that things come to you, and I believe there's an ether and all of that. So 2.5 years ago, this was revealed to me, and it was a very scary thing because I knew that once you understand this, that you're going to be facing a world of opposition. And that is the truth of it, because when you go out on the streets and talk to people, that's what you get hit with. And it's like a wave of opposition. So you have to be able to navigate the waves coming at you. And so I'm just a regular person. Maybe I have been through some experiences that other people have not been through. I understand the corruption in the federal government perhaps a little bit better than most people because we were in a federal lawsuit. And it came down to figuring out that my 5.5 hour deposition was tampered with. And when I told the federal Judge Diamond in the Philadelphia Eastern District that they tampered with my deposition, he said, "Oh, you should have figured that out long ago." Well,
Hmm.
Judge Diamond, I never signed off on that deposition, and fraud has no statute of limitations, sir. So perhaps you ought to bow down off of your perch because you are not a honest judge. So this is where I'm coming from. I see a lot of corruption. I see a lot of lies in our society, in our system, in the world. And I am about Ephesians 5:11 in the scripture that says, "Have nothing to do with the evil deeds of this world, rather expose them." And so that's kind of my journey, is to expose the lies. Now, I'm not right about everything, but what I do know and do see, I'm not inhibited by to not say it. Okay, I'm going to speak it out. So that's what I'm doing. I go out on the street and I teach what I know, and I get people to think, and I never expect them to accept it right there. I just want them to look at it and look into it. And I even tell kids, the parents who allow their children to speak to me, which is awesome. Those parents are the most intelligent because they are not afraid of evidence. Some parents are afraid. I had one doctorate in chemistry. Have her daughter was looking at my stuff, and she pulled her away, yanked her daughter away. I said, "Don't ever be afraid to investigate something. The truth will prevail." "Oh no, I don't want her near you. No, no, no." But you know, there is nothing about what I teach that can harm anyone. You will only be smarter for investigating it, because I am not telling you you have to believe it. Just look at it, because it's just comparing the two different models makes you smarter. It makes you have to think. And
Yeah.
that's what we should do.
Yeah, for sure.
The school system does not want our children to think. You have to know that. They want them to repeat like a parrot. Just parrot back what we tell you, true or not. And that's what we're getting, is little robots. and they can't think, and they mock people who have a different idea, and that is not intelligence.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
that's a defensive behavior. Mocking someone is defensive because you're afraid of your own thoughts being challenged and you can't answer. So that's why I don't like people who mock, because I think they're not thinking. I have I've always been a self-taught type of a person. I taught myself how to ride horses, and I got to the place where people would hire me to ride their horses. I'm not an expert in anything, but it was good enough that I got some show points for some people I knew. Um, I got my father raised beagles, so I knew about dogs and I knew about genetics through his teaching me those types of things. I was a creationist and argued against evolution before I came to flat Earth. So Dr. Hovind was one of my mentors. I think I watched every debate he had, and he was such a logical, well thought out debater. And let me see, horses, swimming. I did swim, competition swimming. I know how it is to focus on something. I have goals. I know what goal setting is. I want to teach that to other people, and especially in the flat earth community. I do not think we are organized, and we need to start teaching how to go out in the streets and have a conversation with people. We don't have that ability anymore. Conversation is like uh, texting someone, and that's not a conversation. You have to be able to look at someone in the face and really have a serious conversation. And there's nothing wrong with debate. You can debate and not feel anger or an emotion towards somebody else. So I think we've lost the art of communication, and we need to get that back. People used to talk to each other, and now there's a real separation of humanity, and that's where they want us. And those are the parasitic controllers. They are controlling, and they have built this system, and they want us to stay separated. And if they can do it by putting us on a little phone or something, where they type it in, it's like you don't even know if you're talking to a robot. So let's get back to talking face to face and having real discourse. Um, so let me think. What else? Yeah, I have 3 kids, 34, 30, and 22. Do they believe in the flat earth? I am not pressing them. And I think it's one of those unspoken rules that you don't attack someone's children or judge somebody by, what their family thinks. I would say 99% of the flat earthers are there alone, that their families do not support them in what they're thinking. And that's the way it is. But you know what? That's going to change. And there's going to be a real tipping point at some point coming up very soon, because I know our community is growing, where it's just going to flip right over and people are going to say, oh, yeah, this is right. So, but I think by then 5G will be all set up and they will know who everybody is. And I'm sure they already do know. And so anyone who has a brain enough to think, they're going to zap them with microwaves, and there will go their whole brain. And see, you're laughing at that, but do you know anything about the 5G technology? Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I do. I work at a internet service provider, and we deal with wireless and Wi-Fi and all of those things quite a bit.
So you don't think that those are microwaves that are going to be coming out of those towers?
I know the frequency ranges that they're talking about are quite a bit different than the current 2.4, 5.2, 5.9 gigahertz that they're using for Wi-Fi currently. LTE is in the same kind of range, and so the frequencies they're using for 5G can carry more bandwidth, but it's not as good at getting through material because of the different frequency. So what they have to do is they have to have more they're not towers anymore because they just put them on poles for the most part. Because it doesn't get through air, it doesn't get through houses or trees as well, so they need to have more of them. And that's to their benefit as well, because there's more towers, is lack of a better word there, to have more bandwidth. So
well, they're going to have millions and millions of these antenna out there.
Yes.
This is not just changing a bandwidth. This is changing the whole scope of this frequency or this system. So, and here I have to say, this is a good example of what's going on with the major question we get as a flat earther is, well, you think everybody is keeping this secret? Well, you as a moral man are being told this is what you're doing and it's going to be a good thing. And you believe that, and this is what allows you to do what you do. But just imagine putting that technology in the hands of someone who is totally demented and corrupt. And could it possibly be? That's where we have to look at things, because this 5G is in the news. It's being discussed in government offices and in front of government panels. I've seen them on YouTube where there's been discussion about this 5G and what could it possibly do. So yeah, this is the problem, is that we're the moral people like yourself are being told one thing, but it could possibly easily be changed to be something nefarious. So this is what the question we get all the time. Oh, you think everybody's keeping a secret? I say no, because some people are being told this is what they're doing, and they are doing it, but then it's going to be changed into something else by the next department or, down the line. I had a friend who worked for, Lockheed Martin. And he said, and he was working on a weapons system. He says, well, I would tell you the weapon system I'm working on, but then I'd have to kill you. And that's a joke that they put out there, just to keep the departments separate. So is compartmentalization happening? You betcha. So, yeah, it's a very complex thing, and people will not talk for many fearful reasons. So, so you've gotten, how long have I been looking into flat Earth? It's about 2.5 years. So.
Yeah, and what was, you covered that. So what was the thing that pushed you over the edge? Like, that convinced you in the end?
Well, I had a small group that was meeting here at my house for several years. And one of the guys who owned a software company, these were educated people, okay? One of the guys said to me, well, they say we never landed on the moon. And I looked at him and I said, you're crazy. I saw that on TV. I'm old enough to have seen it as it was happening right there on TV. So, what? There. Oh, okay, fine. I'm taking on the challenge. I'm looking into it. Okay. See, that was the whole purpose of our group, was we analyzed things. We watched and analyzed videos and whatnot. I guess someone who could want to mock us would have said, oh, they're a conspiracy group. Well, not so. We didn't believe everything we looked into. But we did analyze things. So I did look into the moon landing, and I came away with that saying, holy crap, we never landed on the moon. And while I was looking for that, flat Earth used to come up. And the first time I saw flat Earth come up, I thought, oh, that's just ridiculous. I'm not looking into that. Second time it came up, I said, oh, those poor delusional Christians. And I'm a Christian. I have been many, many years. So I thought, well, I'm not. And then the third time it came up, I was kind of annoyed, and I said, well, if there's anything to this, then there has to be a working model. And I went looking for a working model. And from then on, I was sucked into the vortex, and I was researching everything on that, everything. And the funny thing was that the rest of my group could not accept what I was telling them that I was finding. They could not cross over into that, well, let me look at it kind of thing. They couldn't even, I had one guy who was making satellites and putting them up in the air and whatnot. I had these were educated people. I'm not kidding you. So, no, they could see to look into this. And when I was just recently down in Ocean City on the boardwalk, this guy, he had a doctorate in physics, and he's, older, much older now. And he kind of laughed at me when he walked by. And somebody like him could never even look into it. They couldn't even consider that it would be real because it would destroy their whole life's work. See, in order to even look into this, you have to not care about yourself or what it means. You have to only seek truth, and that's all. Now, how it affects you, that has to be totally secondary. So that's what I had to know.
Okay.
That's what you had to know.
So I've watched a few of your videos where you've gone out on the streets talking to people, and you do that. Is that looks like it's a primary what you do at least on YouTube, right? So are there some interesting things that you've experienced out there?
Oh, probably too many to even mention. But it's
yeah, you've done it a bunch, so yeah, you're going to get a lot of stories.
Yeah, but after a while, you start to say, okay, I'm going to put that guy in this category. See, what you can't do is take things to heart. I have this theory that it takes somebody 3 times hearing about it to take it seriously. So the ones who laugh when they're walking by and point at me and laugh at me and mock me and say something or get angry, I put them in category 1 because this is the first time they've heard it. And it's going to be a shock to their system, okay? So in order to get over the shock, they have to hear it and then get away from it, okay? So the second time they hear it, they're going to say, well, I've heard this before. They're talking to themselves, I've heard this before. Now, come on, maybe I ought to get just a little information. Maybe I can ask one question. So they might ask one question and then still laugh and walk away or not look into it. But the third time, they're going to take it a little bit more seriously. And at that point, they'll probably look into it. They'll stay there for a while. They'll ask a few questions. The more intelligent people will ask questions and then see if it can fit into their paradigm. The ones who are just followers and don't think for themselves, they're going to really need a lot of help. And some of those are even the ones who have doctorates in physics. Because I'm telling you, they are not always the most intelligent. And I even said to one girl when I was at Westchester College, I actually said it to the whole group of students. And this one girl really took exception to it. I said, it is the people who get straight A's who are the least intelligent. And she really took offense at that because she was...
She's a straight A, huh?
Yeah, right. But that's the truth because all they're doing is parroting back what they're told and pleasing the teacher and giving the teacher back what they've been told to say. So that does not mean intelligence. That just means they're good at memorizing and spitting it back out. Intelligence means that you ask the questions. You challenge what you're being told. You challenge the honesty and the truth of it, okay? That's what intelligence is. You can think for yourself.
Yeah, to take it in and analyze it and rephrase it and have an understanding of it. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, chew it up, really good.
Yeah. Yeah, and then to engage with somebody on it, that's the next level. Yeah. I've seen the pyramid of like facts at the bottom, and then as you build up into this higher level of analysis, it's not about memorizing things. It's about being able to analyze it and produce your own stuff.
Yeah. Yes. Good job.
Yeah. So I suppose there have been times when you've been a little nervous. Out on the streets, are there anything that was like particularly you felt you were in danger or just really nervous?
Well, not in danger because usually the cops are very close by. Even out on the Ocean City boardwalk, the cops are there and they're listening, and they're very nice to us in Ocean City. I'll tell you. Even this last time, I was off at one side and had my other banners at the other end, and one of the shop owners said to the cops, "Look, their banners are too big," and he was trying to go by the book because he was, he couldn't make big banners for his business. But we weren't having a business there. We're just sharing information, which is totally different. Um, and the cop just kind of, like pushed him off. And, he defended us. And I thought that was just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, nervous, I'm telling you. I used to get nervous before every time I went out. It's not so bad now. But I would say I have to really get in a zone of, why am I doing this? Why am I going out there and sharing this information? And I have to remember that I have to love them more than I care about protecting self. This isn't about me. It's not about Marilyn's spirit level looking good or not making a mistake or, winning people or getting a following. It has nothing to do with that. It all has to do with, are they getting the truth? Are they getting correct information? Are they even researching this? Are they questioning their government? Are they asking the government their questions that they need to ask? This is what I am about. It's not about me. I don't care about me. I never, it's only when I do these kind of videos that you ever see my face. I have that camera I wear on my front of my self here, and it's always looking outward at them because that's what this is about. It's about them. It's not about me. So me, nothing. Information, top dog, and the people that it's going to get
All right. So have you had some experiences that you thought were just really good? Some, memorable ones that you thought were...
Well, I thought about this, and it was like there's just so many. I just love when the kids come and they ask these questions, and they have these open minds. And I always say, I'm a little bit nervous when the kids come because I don't want their parents to be upset. But I would give them a brochure and I'd say, now make sure you show this to your parents. Give this to your parents and talk to them about it, because the parents are ultimately responsible, although our society is changing so much in that regard that they try to, get the parents out of the equation. So, I don't want to do that, and I don't want to interfere in family at all. But I do want them to consider the information. A great experience is just going and doing it. Going and sharing is the great experience because I see little light bulbs going on all over the place. If you've ever experienced someone just you can see it on their face, oh, oh, that's right. They'll say something like that, or you can see it, the little light bulbs going on. And that's just so joyful to me to see that. I know that I'm helping them to see, and that's just so rewarding to me. And I don't know why everybody's not out there like me. I don't know why they're not doing this.
I suppose there's a lot of personality. An introvert would have a different experience than an extrovert.
Well, I can help them get over that. So anybody who wants to do this and wants to love mankind, you should contact me at Marilynteed@yahoo.com, and I will personally help you get along your way. Go to flatearth101.com and watch some videos. If you have any real struggles, let me know. I'll help you out. Are we going to get to some some questions here? Because I've seen your videos before, some issues, some real flat Earth issues.
Well, when I'm doing this type of interview, I'm not trying to have a debate, right? And I've had debates, right? So if you want, we certainly can touch on something a little more interesting.
Well, it's not that it's not interesting. I've told people this about myself before, and my intentions and my motivations before. So I don't know. It just seemed like there were some things in your other videos that maybe could have been explained differently,
Hmm.
maybe the way I explained them, and that it could bring some understanding. That's what I'm looking for, is coming to some understanding,
Yeah.
between.
So, all right. So let's do this then. The next question is: other than we can see too far, what's your favorite flat Earth evidence?
Well, I carry a 4 foot level with me. If you see my videos, I hold it up, and I even down to Boardwalk at Ocean City this time, I held it up because you can see straight out to the ocean where the horizon is. When you're in town, you can't see it.
It's too far, yeah,
Um,
or it's
yeah,
blocked, yeah.
so there's too many buildings and whatnot in the way. So a true horizon would be the ocean horizon. So you hold that up, and I'm there. Here, put this up to your nose. Let me get the level, and you tell me where that horizon is. And they see it. It's right up here at eye level. Now, some people have tried to say, "Oh, it's just below eye level." Well, I don't care about your little minutia. Don't give me your minutia. It's not freaking curving down, you know. So that's one of mine and favorites because I carry that level. I also use that level to point to things on the banners, which is another thing. Um, Water always seeks its own level. And I just heard someone else say, well, yeah, but level doesn't mean flat. It means relationship to the center of the earth. Okay, and I understand that. And some of the flat earthers, even those who go out and teach, they don't get this quite right. So I'm hoping that they will learn, and I would love to be an opportunity in a position to teach some of them the right way to say things. Now, I don't get everything right either. So, but certainly seeking its own level. Now, they say there was a video where you cut a slice off an orange, and then they say, well, now look, it's a circle, but and it goes around like a sphere, but you only see the line. Okay, so here we go. We have the line, the straight line of the horizon on the ocean, but as soon as you see land, it's all over, because that land, and I'm going to give you my video, is Wildwood to, or ACNJ. I think that's what it is, Atlantic City. And then we took videos from Wildwood, and we took a progression all the way down to Wildwood every 10 miles or something. And you can see Atlantic City from Wildwood. That's 32.6 miles. So there has to be curvature. So once you see land, it's all over. It's not going down. There's no curvature.
Yeah, so how much land do you see over that 32 miles? And what's the elevation that you're viewing it from?
Okay. Well, I would say sea level. If I'm up on the jetty and I'm 10 feet above sea level, well, okay, that's 10 feet.
Okay.
You want to argue that 10-foot point? Okay, then I'm going to say that you're really stuck in minutia and nitpicking. You know what nits are, right?
Yeah.
Lice eggs.
Yeah.
They're very tiny. So you want to pick out a formula. You want to say there's this much curvature. Okay, well then let's talk about that. From what I see, for a sphere at 24,901 equator, that means there would be 6,000 miles from the North Pole to the equator, and 4,000 miles in drop. So that's a 3-to-2 ratio. So for every 3 miles, there would be 2 miles of drop. That has to work out that way to get to the equator. So you want to come up with a formula? All right. So the other thing is, we're also looking at standing on the surface. We're not looking at a cut slice of the globe model. We are on the surface looking away from us, which gives you a different viewpoint. That's curvature down and away. So the only way you can get that is the 8 inches times the mile squared.
So that formula is a little bit, it's a rule of thumb, and to do it right, it's better to use sine, cosine, some more spherical trigonometry, which is certainly difficult.
Not necessarily difficult, but I would love to see a chart on that with 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile, 7, 10. make up a chart and let's look at the drop or the curvature.
Yeah. So, but you need the height of the observer, of course, because that changes it. And it's not just. I've seen people try to say, well, let's just then subtract after we do the math, and it doesn't quite work like that because it diverges from just subtracting. So there's several calculators that do it using trigonometry instead of just the simple Pythagorean theorem. So let me see if I can share.
So do you have a chart on that?
Well, a chart would be a chart would require more axis, a dual axis, because we certainly could do it because you need both observer height and distance. But let me.
Yeah, and don't forget, you're not looking at a cross section of a globe. You're standing on the surface.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that is a totally different vantage point than looking at a cross section where you can use arc. It's not the same thing. We're not dealing with a circle here. Okay? So
let's see. Do you see?
Yes, I do.
There. So that has well, we're standing on the top of it, but that's it's useful if we're sitting tangent to that, which would be our eye down at the level of the water. But when we're not that low, then what we need is, on this diagram here, imagine went the wrong way on the zoom. Imagine we're on the left side of this arc here at the end of R there, and then you got this L, it's the curve, or this hump over the top, and then over on the right side would be what you're observing, for example, and then that H, that's the height of that hump, and that's the important thing. That's what we're expecting to see is obstructing on a sphere like that.
Yes. Now, if you place that on the globe model, you will never get that far. Never. But if that's like 1/3, if that's 1,000 miles you're looking at from L to H, that H thing, that's 1,000 miles would be what? It would be 300 feet. No, 300 miles of drop. 1,000 miles should be 333 in drop. And that's, I don't know if that's what you're coming up with.
So the drop is different than the bulge, and that's the point I have about doing the math correctly, because it's not a minutia thing, because the difference when you calculate them differently works out to be quite a bit different numbers. If they were close numbers, then I wouldn't worry about it. So
if you're talking about curvature, you cannot talk about bulge. You cannot talk about bulge because you cannot see the other point, the RH, or the R, that point on the
the other side you can't. So if there's a bulge, you would not expect to see the ground.
The only thing you can say in dealing with curvature is the point you're standing and the point the object disappears. That's the only thing you can talk about. So that's a different vantage point, and you can't use that kind of a.
So
now here you have C and Z. There you go.
Yep. So this is another one that's has a little better diagram, but it doesn't have the formulas like that other one does.
See, this is the type of thing I use. I have a little rubber earth ball that I take and I teach with, and I point to Australia and I point to the North Pole, and I said, now you tell me how a compass works. Does it go through, like your line CPZ? Does it go through the Earth, or does it go around the Earth, like CGZ?
The lines of the magnetic field?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a three-dimensional field, right?
But you can't use this type of a, because
this wouldn't be something useful for a magnet.
It wouldn't be useful for anything that we are dealing with in reality. You can't do, this is the CPZ, and with your picture of a lighthouse, it's way out of proportion, number one.
Oh yeah, it's not to scale, of course.
Yeah, and it's like 2,000 miles, that big cutout you've taken there, and that would be like 666 miles of curvature downward if you go by the 6,000, 4,000 ratio. So this is what we have to look at. This is how we have to look at this. What's the practical application for this? With that diagram, and I understand that you have to make something bigger to see it.
Yeah.
In no way am I mocking this at all. But I mean, even your little stick man up there at point A, he's like, how many miles above the surface is he there?
Yeah,
I mean,
the scale isn't the point. Of course, it's all exaggerated so that you can see it. Otherwise, it'd all be,
right.
1 pixel
But
difference.
That's what we have to come to. What is it? What is reality? Reality, looking at curvature, is not exaggeration.
Yeah. So we do the math, right, and then that line PG, that's the one that would be the obstruction on a sphere.
So what is it for 1 mile? What is it for 2, 5, 10, 20?
Yeah. So I'll do 1 mile. And observer height 10 feet.
And I'm not 10 feet tall.
So I'll go 6.
That's good.
And put you. And this diagram doesn't change. It's not a like 2 scale from that. So
target height at 6 feet or
yeah.
0?
So if you're on the beach and you're standing on the beach,
yeah.
See 1 mile's not far enough, but let's see, because there's no. You can still see at that height. So the depth to chord, the GP, that's the bulge between you and the destination, is 0.1667 feet. So it's very small at 1 mile. But if we go to 10 miles...
That would not factor out on the 6,000 to 4,000 ratio, which it has to be.
Well, this is using the spherical trigonometry.
Okay, but go a quarter of the way around, and does it match up? I don't think you're going to get that.
Go a quarter of the distance of the circumference of the Earth?
Yes, sir.
So 6,000 miles? What are we, 24? Yeah. So your chord, the GP, is this big number here, 5,720,000.
That doesn't match.
And that is exactly my problem using the simple formula, because it doesn't match.
Yeah. So we are both at a loss here. If you don't like my formula that I
exactly,
and I don't like yours, then we have to kind of come up with something that works.
So let me do the miles here. That's 1,083 miles of obstruction. So what were you saying was what you expected?
For 6,000 miles, that's a quarter of the way around. That would be a radius. 4,000 miles. You take a quarter of that.
Yeah, and yeah, so that is certainly a difference in calculation. So.
Yeah, thank you. We got to find something that works. I just know when I'm in Wildwood and I can see Atlantic City, and even with the mirroring explained, because we went down and took a night video with a P1000, and I could see streetlights. So from Wildwood.
Yeah.
So certainly, I don't think anyone would object to, wow, that's something. That's significant. So I don't think there's any curvature. I know there's no curvature. And water, holy, I just got a kayak, a month ago or so. And I just did the Delaware Water Gap, which is the northern Delaware river. And I was just out there, and I just, you have these mountains, one on either side. You're on this nice flat water. It's a very slow moving part of the river, and the sky with the clouds above, and you sitting there, and it just like hits you like, holy cow, how could we be moving? We are not spinning 1,000 miles an hour. It's just impossible. And we have to deny our senses to believe that. And that's what they want. They want us to be confused and off balance and not have confidence in our own senses. That's why they are telling us these things. Um, they don't want us to trust our own self, our own mind. So that way they can control us. See?
Hmm.
So that's where I'm coming from with that. Is there anything else that we can like come to some understanding on?
Well, we're getting a little farther in this, and I know you had something you're doing afterwards, so maybe we can pop up to.
Yeah, actually, that was changed. I don't have that
Oh,
anymore.
okay.
I'm dealing with that, so that's okay. As
All
long as
right.
you have the time, I got
Sure.
the time. You got the money, honey. I got the time. Did you ever hear that? That's funny.
It's familiar, yeah. All right, so I like to ask, what do you think is the worst flat Earth claim? Right? There's certainly a few things that are, off the point and not correct. What do you think is one that's kind of bad?
Yeah, well, I made a video about this. There's a little brochure that somebody made up, and forgive me for not giving him the credit for making this up, but I hand it out because I think it's a good preliminary thing to hand out. But it's about the 10 things that you can think about. And number 2 is where a plane would have to dip its nose all the way around the planet to go. And I said, now I have a problem with that because the globalists are going to say, well, gravity is like a tether tied to that nose of that plane, and it's just going to go around and like bring the plane into that altitude perfectly around where the center is. And I said, that's what they're going to say. But I think if we explain a gyroscope to people, then they would understand that a gyroscope has to be rigid in space and it's not subject to gravity. It's subject to where it starts, the level that it starts.
Do you mean like the artificial horizon in the plane?
Yes, the attitude indicator.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And I see that a lot. So all right. So first, I appreciate that the you see that the plane thing isn't a good one because it and it's not the pilots that I've talked to, they don't talk about the gravity as much as the air pressure, because the plane is at an equilibrium based on its amount of thrust, and so it can't, when you go at a certain angle into the air, which is up, the nose is up a couple degrees, 2 or 3 degrees, and the lift versus the thrust balances out, and then you stay at that altitude because of the air pressure. And so when a plane actually flies, it uses fuel and gets lighter, and over time, without other things changing, which of course happen pretty regularly, but the plane actually gains altitude because it burns fuel and has less fuel, and goes faster as it gets higher as well. So
okay, I heard everything you said. I have a question.
okay.
And I don't know if you can answer it or not, but you said because the plane is taking off and the nose is higher, that is, am I correct in saying that is what's creating the reduction in air pressure?
Well, no, the reduction in air pressure happens as you get higher in altitude, right?
Okay, because there is such a thing called lift.
Yeah, and the lift is what's balancing, and as the air pressure is lighter, you get less lift, or not lighter, less dense air, there's less lift.
Correct.
So in order to balance that, you can angle the nose up more, you can apply more thrust. There's a couple things you can do to, if you want to gain altitude, you can do that. But once you level out and you're flying, at altitude, then you're at a slight incline, and you balance your thrust so that you're not going faster than necessary and gaining altitude that you don't want to gain.
Right.
So
the reason that I didn't like the airplane thing was only because the dipping the nose meant there was an invisible tether tied to the nose and the center of the earth. Okay. It had nothing to do with the gyroscope. And I was saying
Sure.
that the gyroscope, once explained, the gyroscope can compensate for that.
Yeah. So now the gyroscope is trouble because I've seen it a lot. Ranty Flat Earth just did one last weekend on it, and he had some guy talking about it. But it leaves off that the engineers put a whole bunch of things in there to adjust for that exact thing, right? So.
Are we talking about the new computerized?
No. The mechanical ones have around it they call them pendulous vanes. I don't know if you've heard that,
Correct.
right? But it pulls to the side when they're not at perpendicular, right, to the ground, and that allows air to flow through, and then it slowly pushes the gyroscope, reorients it in 3D space back to perpendicular to the ground. It does it's just little holes in there, and it does it slowly because you wouldn't want it to be correcting itself instantly while you're turning. But over time, which is enough based on how fast you fly, it corrects itself back to perpendicular.
Okay, so if you were on a perpetual turn, would the gyroscope eventually correct itself to show you that you were being level flight?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, it would.
No, it would not.
Because a 1 degree for 69 miles is not a lot, and the plane takes, depending on speed, they know how quickly a plane can fly that distance, and so they tune it so that it corrects itself in that amount of time.
No, I want to say that again because I wonder if you really heard what I was saying. If you were in a perpetual turn, if you had banked your plane.
Banking it, yes, that's a problem, and
perpetual.
And that's how what's his name, Robert Kennedy, was that
John Jr.?
John Jr. Yeah, he was circling, and he kept like pulling up because he wasn't, I don't remember the details, but he wasn't looking at something, wasn't doing something correctly, and that's what eventually caused him to crash.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And
I don't know if I believe that or not.
I'm a little hazy on the exact details of that, but that's one of the things that I'd seen about that. It might be worth looking into because I don't like to talk when I don't know stuff.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, I'm going to depend on the gyroscope to be stationary, rigid in space, and know that if I take a bank turn, that it's going to tell me that I'm taking a turn, no matter how long that turn is. So I'm going to kind of reject what you're saying on that.
Okay.
Politely and respectfully.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
So I don't know, because you're probably not a pilot. Okay.
I'm not. I've watched a few, and this is the first. My son. I don't think he's going to make it this month, but he was trying to begin pilot school this month. I'm pretty excited about that. But
awesome.
Yeah, maybe next month, or they have a new class each month at the school he's looking at. So got to get the financial aid figured out correctly. So
there you go.
Yeah, I was super excited to hear that.
Was he in the service?
What's that?
Was he in the service?
No. He had talked about it, and he looked at maybe doing Air Force as a way because, of course, you get a lot of time there. But yeah, he didn't want to do the military. Though right out of high school, he almost enlisted, and we're like, hey, let's talk again. And he's like, I think I was a little rushed. So
yeah,
now.
He would get training, although I'm not sure that commercial airliners would be good for a fighter pilot.
Yeah, I have a good friend who I used to work with him and haven't for a while, but he is a pilot for Delta now, and he used to fly A-10s in the service, and he's a fun guy to talk to about flying.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, I just turned that thing upside down. Like, what? It's like, yeah, I'd turn the plane upside down.
I would lose my lunch.
Oh yeah. So, all right, what do you think, I like to have fun with this, what do you think is the worst ball earth claim, something that's just silly, and something that doesn't even really match our model at all, but people claim it?
I don't know. I'll tell you.
You
I'll tell you.
you must hear a lot of them on the
Well,
street,
mention
right?
some. Mention a few.
Well, people will say they look out an airplane and they see the curve right out of their window,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, I know how to handle that one.
Yeah, and yeah, you don't see enough field of view from an airplane window at that altitude to really see enough to make a decision, you know.
Yeah, and they don't look down. They're looking straight out the window at eye level to the horizon. And, if they really are honest with themselves, they will say that. See, what we do is we see something and we go, wow, that doesn't look right. Oh, well, it must be me. I must be wrong because everybody believes it is a ball. So they reject their own senses. We are being trained, conditionally trained over and over again to deny our own senses. And so they will say, well, I must be wrong because that has to be a globe because I saw a picture from outer space, which we all know was fake anyway now. So, you're smiling.
Like you, I've heard them too.
Yeah.
We know one picture was faked and photoshopped, and the rest was not what he was talking about. But that's fine. That's
Wait a minute. I saw the sex in the clouds there. I'm not going to fall for it.
I heard when I was a kid, somebody told me that gravity is caused by the Earth spinning, and that if it stopped spinning, we would all fly off. And as a kid, I'm like, that doesn't make sense, right? But it was from an adult, so I didn't say anything. I just kind of took it in, but I parked it, and it's a, you have a few like clear, vivid memories from when you're a kid. That's one of them, and I know where I was, so I know I was no more than 6 years old, and I know who said it to me, and like, oh my goodness, looking back at it, like that is silly.
Yeah. See, I think, you've got a mind that's working, and when we're young, we don't have all those prejudices applied to us and pushed on top of us, holding us down, not allowing our minds to be free to think.
Yeah.
So when we're young, they got to get us young. And did you know that they even have legislation now which extended the year in either direction? It used to be 8 and 17, and now it's 7 and 18, that the state can hold us in the schools. So they are trying to get younger.
Past,
younger.
so you can't get out until you're 19?
And well, it said they can hold us till 18.
Oh, until 18. Okay.
So, yeah. So
I
want to have us cradle to grave.
I knew that, but it's still, I think a lot of people think 18 is the already was the limit and not 17.
Well, they test the waters,
Yeah.
Although I graduated at 17. I think I was 17.
Well, yeah, and certainly a lot of people do because, if their birthday is past the graduation date before Labor Day, depending on the school district, they are 17. And people move ahead sometimes, and they graduate at 16. I knew a girl that was, she graduated at 16, and she's very brilliant, and she's studying pre-med now at an Ivy League school, and she's 17, and she had done post-secondary, so she's like a junior already.
Wow.
At 17. So
yeah, but I would have to question if she's really intelligent or just able to memorize. Some people have photographic memory.
Sure, and certainly she's very good at that. But sometimes you talk to people and you get an idea. I've known straight A students that I didn't think could come up with stuff on their own, and I've met C students that are all figuring out stuff all the time, so it's right. There's a whole bunch of different things going on.
Knowing something and being able to apply it are different animals.
Yep. Yeah.
So if you get her in a debate, would she fall apart? And not to just pick on her per se,
at this point she probably would, right? She's 17 and she's and I got to say, before I felt comfortable doing a debate with on this topic, I spent an entire year just looking at it and educating myself so that I would know when something came up, how do I understand that well enough to have a response to it.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right. Yeah.
So what's the most convincing spherical Earth evidence you've seen?
Well, at this point, I don't think I have any problem with anything the sphere can put out there. I think I have a pretty healthy grasp on every concept that's been broached to me.
Okay.
There are some things that I will say, well, I don't have an answer for that. You know, like with gravity, I teach that it's a push down and not a pull down because of the way the flat Earth model and the free flowing electricity and the torus field. We certainly could have a push down force, but there has to be a force of some sort. It is not just density and buoyancy. And I have to admit, I get upset with the flat earthers who are out there saying, oh, it's just density and buoyancy. And then this one guy came up with relative density. Well, that sounded all like new and innovative, but you know what? That's just bunk because it's just another name for buoyancy. Relative density. Well, yeah, some things go down and others go up. I mean, but why, you know?
It's
so I get frustrated
with
our guys.
Little call out to Sleeping Warrior there.
Oh, there you go.
I've had some good chats with him on Discord, just private chats, and he can get a little inflammatory at times, but we've had some good talks, I think. But
as long as we're all seeking truth, that's what we have to do is seek truth, and we're gonna clash heads on this. You know, don't let the blonde hair fool you. I can think. You know, so and I'm willing to stand up for what I think too, and I'm going to have damn good reason for what I think, or I'm not going to think it. I'm not going to certainly go out on the street and tell people and get laughed at for something that I'm not pretty darn sure of.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had some people call me nasty names, and that's okay, because it's their problem, not mine, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I don't have a problem. I would love to have debated with those guys. I did exposés on their work, and that's okay, because if we're all seeking truth, they will come to realization that, hey, there has to be a force. It doesn't just happen by itself. Because even that density tube, when you take it up in that 0G plane, the density of those materials or fluids still exists. It exists in molecular form. It just does not separate without a force. You can't see the differences in the density, okay? So it just doesn't go away. I mean, so, you know, it would be nice if we could discuss things, but there's egos involved here on both sides. I mean, a guy with a PhD will just, you know, put his nose in the air and walk past me. I'm there, come back here. You come back here and let's toe to toe. Let's talk about this, you know, because I'm not afraid of his piece of paper with the writing on it, because that's all it is. If he cannot apply to practical, you know, observance where we live and to what the world we live in, then he knows nothing. And I know that. See? So if you can't apply what you're telling me, then that piece of paper is not even worth kindling. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's get to the facts. I mean, really.
Yeah, and the density, relative density, you know, the force is kilogram meters per second squared, right? And I like to do dimensional analysis on it, which is just you leave out the numbers and you just put in the units. And so if you take density, which is kilograms per cubic meter, and you do relative density, right, you subtract them, well, you're left with no units, which isn't a force. You can go electrical or magnetic, and you can use things like Coulomb's law, and you do get a force out of that in the correct units, right? But we can test that to see if there's things that make sense using Coulomb's law or magnetic forces and magnetic susceptibility. I haven't seen anything on that, and I haven't done much myself, but I haven't seen anything that works. But it certainly would be something, because I have seen a lot of people say it's electrical or it's magnetic, but that's the end of the claim that I've seen. They haven't actually tried to say, well, all right, so set this up, and here's the prediction, and oh, look, we get 9.8 meters per second squared out of it.
Yes, but why?
Absolutely,
why?
Yeah.
That's the thing that we're not, like, we can come together on that. Is like, all right, let's figure out why. And I can say that it's not gravity, because gravity is defined as pulling to the center of a ball. So there has to be curvature, or otherwise that tether does not exist to pull that nose of the plane. So it's not, by definition, gravity, because there's no curvature. Once you eliminate the curvature, then it has to be some other force. So let's try and figure out together, what is that other force, or what could it possibly be? See? And then we can do some testing to see, what is it? You know?
Yeah. I like that's a good way to do it, because you get a model, and then you test to see if that model works. And if it doesn't, right, whether you call it a hypothesis or a model, in science, that it doesn't matter much in that. And if it doesn't work, then you get rid of that one, tweak it, come back and test another one.
Right. Yeah.
So, you mind if we switch gears here?
You want shoe size now or something?
So, I was sad to see that Patricia Steer shut down her channel.
And really, why?
Because of the hurt and the way she got treated. I don't agree with right her idea of flat Earth or any of that. But I can put that aside and say, why would you treat somebody like that?
Okay, I'm kind of unaware. Are you talking about like the tranny accusations? And okay, well, I don't know. I've never called her a tranny. The thing I did not like about Patricia Steer was that she never did activism. She had opportunity and she didn't do activism. I have this thing. If you're not doing activism, then you're not really sincere. You're not a sincere flat earther, because once you realize that the earth is a flat plane, how can you hold that in? You've got to let it out. You've got to be telling other people. And if you don't know, without a doubt, that it's not a flat plane, that it is a flat plane, it's not a globe, then hit the books and stop talking. But to me,
so you don't think that her YouTube channel was enough activism, or not the right kind?
Well, who's listening to it?
Well, yeah, it is a bit of an echo chamber.
Yeah,
right.
She's a talking head. So we lost an interviewer. Was she doing anything to further the cause? Well, she's talking to flat earthers about flat Earth and other hot potatoes, whatever they were. I don't know. I saw the show twice, and they were both, one was when Flat Earth Fokker was on, the other one was when Zoom Truth was on. And that was my only interest, because my only interest
and they're both out there,
That's my only interest. So if you're not teaching flat Earth, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
If you have some real great scientific breakthrough, then hey, make a video about it and I'll watch it. But if you're not out there on the streets, then how can you know what you're talking about? You can't.
Yeah.
And you get the most information from these people that you meet, because when you meet these doctorate degrees on the boardwalk, they're going to hit you with something, and that's going to make you think, and then it's going to give you an avenue to pursue. But I don't agree with just talking heads. This is how we got here in the first place, by all these talking heads who are claiming to be authorities, filling our minds with fears and falsities. So I'm happy to get rid of the talking heads. If you want my respect, you'll be out on the street.
Okay.
That's where I'm coming from.
So yeah. And Roxanne, the globalist denier.
Yeah.
No, she's out on the street, right? In
Yeah.
I don't know if she's at Speaker's Corner or if she's at one of the.
I have an opinion on that. Can I interject?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Speaker's Corner. Now, I think it's good. People who want to go and have a debate with somebody, they will go to Speaker's Corner. Is the average person going there for the news? No, they're not. So, I think they need to take their message on the road. Now, the Globe Lie Tour is doing that. Granted, I think that's a great thing. And I love when they take their banner and they go out into the public eye somewhere else. But if you're just going to Speaker's Corner, then that's not near enough. Okay, I think you need to take the message to the people. And I'm not criticizing going to Speaker's Corner. I'm just saying that's not always the best way to reach everybody who are not going to go there. You need to reach other people. So I hope they do as much elsewhere as they're doing there.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of the videos, and I've seen where they're on the street. So I think they're in some well pedestrian area. Maybe I don't know what Speaker's Corner looks like, but I've been to a few of the Piccadilly Circus and some of the different public squares in London there. So, and I guess I don't know which one they were at. So.
Well, I suggested that they decorate their cars with banners and do a parade. If you saw 3 or 4 cars driving down a cobblestone street with flat Earth banners all over them, you would take notice.
Yeah.
And they could reach a lot of people driving for an hour around London. So.
Yep, there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, I like what Harry's doing. He's going out different places.
Who's this?
Yeah, John Smith, Globe Lie.
Okay. I haven't heard of him.
But yeah, I think you need to take the message to the people. I'm not so sure the people are going to come to you.
Yeah. All right. So what? We're gonna kind of getting towards the end here, and probably should wrap up pretty soon. So I like to ask, who's your favorite flat earther?
My favorite flat earther. Ooh. Well, it has to be like I would say Authentic Intent and Dave Gessner, FlatEarth101.com.
Okay.
Those are my favorite guys because they do a lot. They do a lot for Flat Earth, and they don't get a lot of recognition.
Yeah.
So I'm here to give it to them.
Okay. And who is your favorite globehead?
Globehead? Oh, that's easy. Nathan Thompson.
I don't think that's what I meant. That he put a globe on his head.
That's why, because he's a flat earther with a globe head.
Oh,
that's
nice.
Really, that's kind of big.
That's nice. I asked the same to Chris Effie Jackson, and he said Allie B, who I had interviewed just the previous one, and it was an inside joke or something. So
I hope so, because I don't get it.
Yeah, well, I think it's that Allie B has some rather unusual ideas. He thinks we went to the moon, and he thinks that we are a disk floating through space.
Oh my!
So yeah, some little different views than a lot of others.
Well, and that's why I only teach the surface of the Earth. And when people say, "Well, what about the eclipses? What about?" and they start looking up and they want you to go to the heavenly bodies. I'm there, hey, come back down to Earth. Let's just talk about the surface of the Earth. And once you know that they're lying about the surface of the Earth, then you can research the other things. I can't really teach you something that I can't really see three-dimensionally. And you can't. You look through those telescopes and whatnot, you can't really see 3 dimensions there. Even the moon on Jupiter, or the red spot on Jupiter, could be a translucent moon. So you don't know those things. Okay. So, yeah, I try not to teach off of the surface of the earth.
Okay. All right. Do you have anything that you'd want to say to the Globe crowd?
Try to have an open mind and don't be afraid. They hold us in fear for the smallest things. They don't want us to question them. Questioning them is what we should do. And who is they? It's the parasitic controllers. And believe me, they cannot exist without us. Okay? So we do have the upper hand. You just don't realize it. Once we realize that, then we can get some truth back in our governments, in our lives. We can get rid of the taxes and all of that enslavement. So truth needs to come out. And I have this theory I have a different look at Jesus. And I'm going to say this because Jesus is the way, the truth, and life. Okay. If you hold those three things dear, truth, life, and the way, which is love and kindness, then you're going to see things a little differently. We have to have Jesus here. We have to have respect for life. We have to have truth, and we have to have love and kindness towards each other. Okay? When we have those things, then God is present. Okay, so that's how I view it. Okay, I'm not into rituals and doing all these. I even stopped going to church every Sunday because I don't think that's necessary. I think I'm practicing and seeking Jesus every day. So that's how I view it.
Okay. Well, good.
Okay, and so nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy this.
Yeah.
I think you're a nice guy.
Thanks a lot. Well, if anyone found what Marilyn had to say interesting, I'll have the link to her channel in the description, and I'll put your email address in there on that website as well. And I'll also have this on my website at mctoon.net. If you're a flat earther and would like to join, send me an email, mctoon@mctoon.net. And thanks for joining us.
Okay, thanks. Bye.